Here with Rob Hahne, 10-year continuous member of the ABCA, now ABCA Board of Directors, Youth Committee Chair, also on the Travel Committee, but has his hand in so many other things. Westfield High School head coach, Executive Director of Northern Virginia Travel Baseball, and Chair of the Fairfax County Baseball Council. Did I miss anything?
No, that's basically it. It's enjoy being a part of all these different organizations and helping to try and grow and promote the game of baseball.
What has drawn you to a life of service?
I think my parents, the foundational education and how they brought us up was to give back. And Jackie Robinson talks about his quote, and a life is judged by the impact it has on others. And so that servant leadership that I got from my parents and coaches and teachers that impacted me at a young age certainly had a huge impact on me to give back. And I think the ABCA and organizations like the ABCA who are looking at the game from a 30,000 foot level and able to impact the game in so many positive ways. We don't have enough people, in my opinion, who are looking at it from a broader perspective. So that interests me a great deal. So just love doing what I can in a very small way to try to help the game and the athletes that participate in it.
Well, because it seems like we have an older group of coaches and a younger group of coaches, and we need to try to bridge that gap. I think as a young coach, you don't always think about the service piece because you're just holding on, trying to make a career. And I think we've got to try to bridge the gap between the older coaches that we have now and the younger coaches and executives that are coming up. I think we got to try to bridge the gap for a little bit here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's no better organization than the ABCA to do that. I think younger coaches come up and can be intimidated by some of the older coaches and their name recognition and all that they've done in the game. And again, the ABCA just does such an amazing job with the convention and everything else to bridge that gap. But I think we need to continue to do things to reach out to those younger coaches and get them to understand that there are all these doors open to help the game and be a part of everything that the ABCA does. And I think that is an important piece for sure.
How can someone affect change in their area? I think you're a great example of actually affecting change because you're involved with high school baseball, youth baseball, college baseball. You run a college summer league. You run the Northern Virginia Travel League. How can someone affect change in their own area?
Yeah, I think that's a very challenging piece. And I think it's over time gaining trust, showing servant leadership, and reaching out to other leagues and organizations, because I think at times baseball, our sport, hurts itself by competing against each other rather than working together to grow and promote the game. So, in our area alone, there's high school baseball, obviously college baseball, there's American Legion, there's travel baseball, there's Babe Ruth, Cal Ripken, Little League. Those are your, main organizations and leagues. And we have such amazing leadership in our little leagues and Legion and high school that we've been able to build the trust, through the Fairfax County Baseball Council and beyond in the Northern Virginia, DC area, of doing coaches clinics together, and reaching out to the other leagues, free coaches clinics for all leagues, having state of baseball luncheons or dinners where you bring all the league leaders together, to figure out ways to grow and promote the game locally, and sort of forcing people to get in the same room. So it's not, hey, travel's a competitor of Little League, or travel's a competitor of Legion, or showcase baseball is a competitor of high school baseball, whatever it may be. I think getting people together in the same room and putting names with faces and shaking people's hands and looking each other in the eyes and, hey, this guy's really a pretty good guy, and they're not our competition. So how can we work together? And I think it's just being bold and reaching out to league leaders and getting people in the same room to figure out how we can work together to grow and promote the game of baseball versus competing against each other for players or families or attention, I think is a big part of that.
How did you layer what you do? Because somebody's going to look at your resume and everything that you're involved with. How did you layer that as you go? Because it's not like you jumped into everything right away. How did you layer all of that as you went?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was just sort of for me. I've been able to fake my way through not having a real job for 30 years and just sort of figuring out how I can remain in the game of baseball and that be my job. So, as opportunities presented themselves, I certainly was able to try to take advantage of those opportunities and be a part of baseball at every level. I was on Little League boards for 20 years, 25 years, Babe Ruth boards. And I tried to say yes to everything in terms of volunteer opportunities within baseball leadership, all the way down to coaching t-ball with my kids and so that I could see all levels and aspects of the game and really understand them. And the challenges that go with t-ball baseball or t-ball is very different than majors, 12 and under or 10 to 12U baseball. Then into middle school, when they get to the big field, all the way up through high school and college baseball. So I tried to expose myself to as many different levels and leagues and organizations as I could. And there were so many wonderful leaders in our area that provided me with those opportunities. Ron Tugwell, who is the mentor to many of us in the Northern Virginia, DC area, was a 29-year high school coach and literally for free works with players and coaches anytime somebody asks them. Somebody may call them and say, hey, coach, I'm trying to figure out what college to go to. I've got these opportunities. They'll say, hey, listen, I'm going to come over to the house, spend a couple hours with you and your parents, and let's talk about it. And that could be a player he doesn't even know. And he's his first ABCA convention was in the 70s. And he's the one that has gotten many of us in Northern Virginia, DC area to join the ABCA. I remember talking to him, I was getting into coaching 30 years ago, and he goes, Rob, if you want to be a coach, you got to go to the ABCA every single year. And guys like that who sort of set those standards of, jumping on any opportunity that presents itself to learn more about the game at all different levels, certainly set the tone for many of us here in our area.
What else does youth baseball need? You talked about getting everybody on the same page and in the same room, but what are some other things that youth baseball needs right now?
Yeah, I think it's thinking outside the box a little bit and understanding the challenges within youth baseball. Right, we're competing. What are we competing against with youth baseball? We're competing against probably more than anything, electronics and technology. I think we forget about that. I think that's probably number one. Right, how do we get our kids away from screens and outside? That's the first challenge. Once we get them outside, parents are now trying to decide between lacrosse, soccer, baseball, football, basketball, whatever. And I think we all encourage multi-sport athletes for sure. But then it becomes, what challenges do we have within our sport? I think time is a big one, right? At youth baseball, there's a time commitment. And I think that's just as much parents as it is kids, right? It's that time commitment from a parent, a 2-hour practice. Do we need 2.5-hour practices? A 2 to 2.5 hour game? Do we need games that are that long? How do we help and reduce that time commitment for both parents and players? That's certainly one. We all know it's a game of failure. I think that's a big challenge in youth baseball. So when we talk about recruitment and retaining kids within our game, those are two big ones, right? It's a game of failure, and it's the games are boring to some people, to parents. Parents don't like the time commitment, and parents also don't like to see their kids fail. Yeah. So those road bumps, right, and hurdles, speed bumps and hurdles, I think we need to sell as a baseball community. Listen, baseball builds character, mom and dad. Come to baseball, right? It's hard to fail in some of these other sports. The spotlight's not on you when you strike out like it is in baseball. Or baseball, that spotlight's on you when you strike out, when you make an error, when you walk a guy, when you give up a home run. You know, soccer and some of those other sports, not quite so much, right? It happens so fast. There's not as much, you know, sort of dead time to think about failure. And the beautiful challenges that baseball presents from a mental perspective and how it can build character is what we need to start selling to recruit kids into our game and to retain kids in our game. And if we can sell that to parents and show them that we can run fun and organized practices in a timely fashion, do some unique things within games, I think that will help grow and promote the game at 12 and under and things like that. And sort of in closing, how do we go out and recruit kids and families from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different cultures that may never been exposed to the game? Do we go to mosques and churches and schools and things like that from an outreach perspective to be more inclusive, and, you know, from an equity perspective as well? Do we offer these opportunities? You know, this is a guy who runs a travel league. So, you know, travel has this reputation of being expensive. Well, our travel league is to try to keep people from traveling, right? We're providing opportunities to compete with and against local players and teams so that you don't have to travel as much. But how do we also make the game more affordable? And I think that's a big piece to this as well.
Hey, talk about the T-ball modifications you made to the league. I think it's fascinating. I think every T-ball league in the country should probably go to this. So just talk about the modifications that you've made for T-ball.
Yeah, I think we've, you know, locally, that's why Little League, McLean Little League, we started some of these modifications. And to me, some of the best things that I've ever seen, and they work. Sometimes ideas are great on paper and they don't really work. And the first thing was, again, this was 15 plus years ago, originally with McLean Little League, and 6-player teams, I think is huge at T-ball. And you play an hour. And what it is again, you just have 6 players per team. All 6 players bat each inning. Timing wise, you can basically play 3 innings in an hour. Okay. And if the coach is organized and has all his spreadsheets together in terms of who's batting which inning, it just flows really well. Some people will say, well, we don't have enough coaches to have 6-player teams. We need twice as many coaches to have 6-player teams than 12-player teams. Yes, it's more challenging. That's why on Little League, Pony, Cal Ripken League boards, you have to have a coaching coordinator, obviously, who's recruiting parents and getting them to understand that coaching T-ball or coach pitch baseball, you do not have to have an extensive baseball background, right? You're an organizer more than you are a baseball coach, and you're there to, you know, make sure that these kids have fun. And ultimately, we all know as a baseball coach, our number one job at the youth league level is to get players coming back. So you should be rated almost exclusively on that. How many of your players return to play the game the next season or year? So, you know, back to the modifications, 6-player teams, they all 6 bat each inning. And what you do by getting those coaches or those parents involved at a very young age, 5 and 6, is the beauty of once you get them involved, they get the bug. Wow, that was really cool bonding time that I was able to spend with my son or daughter, but also I really enjoyed that, right? I didn't need to, you know, through the ABCA and certainly there's other resources out there. You can learn enough about the sport to be a great coach and organizer at that level. So some other things, you know, ideas that can help you manage the game at 5U, 6U, 7U. We use the PE, you know, those discs from PE, those colored black, blue, red disc. And, you know, you throw one at where the first baseman should play, where the second baseman, shortstop, third baseman, If you have a couple outfielders, you throw them out there, and on your spreadsheet, it's shortstop red, second base blue. And that helps a little bit with the dog pile aspect of T-ball and coach pitch. When the ball's hit, they dog pile. But it just helps you organize the batter's box mats where you can put in your batter's box. They have these mats where you can put, the two outlines of the feet go, so that you don't spend 12 minutes per game organizing kids' feet and where they should stand in relation to the tee. So it becomes efficient. It helps on the time side, and it certainly helps, from a teaching perspective. Those are just some things that can really help. I think when you get to the coach pitch level, you can get up to that 8-player team, and then you just sort of work your way up. Again,
Rob, hey, with the T-ball setup, it's first, second, short, third, and 2 outfielders, no catcher?
Correct.
Yep. And then as you add into the next step, then you're adding the catcher in. When you get to 8, then you're adding the catcher in with that. And a pitch for coach pitch, do you have a pitcher out there standing behind the coach that's pitching?
Yeah, usually it's up to the individual league how they want to work that. But I've seen it done both ways, and I think it works both ways. The thing about having the pitcher there, there are a lot of dribblers. So in some ways you can argue, swinging bunts, if you will, that's necessary. The problem does also become, you can make an argument, hey, play your infielders in and get rid of the pitcher so that the pitcher's not making every play. So I've seen it. We've done it both ways. I've seen it done both ways, and I think either works.
And talk about the youth travel piece, because I like the fact that they have to play rec league, and then they can, by playing rec league, then they can play the extra travel piece.
Yeah, and I think that's you talked earlier. You asked the question earlier, and we talked earlier about how to bring people together and how to organize youth baseball, and that's been a big piece for us at 12 and under. Our travel league, which has 400 plus teams, sort of 8U to 18U, and you talked about the college league, but we offer travel baseball at 12 and under. Our league is Sundays only. Okay. And we've had a lot of people push us to try to go 7 days a week for our travel league. And we have not done that to protect Cal Ripken baseball, 12 and under, and Little League baseball, because we feel like the community league baseball, those foundational leagues that have been here forever are critically important to growing and promoting the game of baseball, not only as they grow up, these kids, but to offer baseball to all levels. So we will continue, as long as I'm involved, in our travel league, to stay Sunday only, 12 and under, which essentially forces them to play Little League or Cal Ripken, depending on what city they live in. And we work directly with those leagues on fields. So they bring fields to us for Sunday play in the spring. And even in the fall, we play Sunday only, which provides them the opportunity to play fall ball with their local leagues if they want to. That's been an important piece because Little League and Cal Ripken, Babe Ruth baseball are critically important, and they need to be here.
Hey, when are you adding leading off and stealing?
So we've gotten a lot of pressure on that one too. That's a great question, Ryan. So at the travel level, reluctantly, we have started to allow them at the metro level. So at most age groups in our travel league, we'll have a metro level, which is sort of the highest level. Let's just call it, A, and then our AA level and AAA level at most age groups, depending on how many teams there are. So we reluctantly, and I'm still second guessing it, and we may change it, 10U A or metro level, we've allowed that to happen. We have been getting pressure from coaches to allow it to happen as young as 9U and 8U. I would argue, as a baseball guy, that we should almost eliminate it all the way
I
up till
still
they
like
get
the
to the
Little
league
League.
field.
I'm
Yep.
still like the Little League model. You can run, but you can't run. It's the old softball. Like, I just
Yep.
think it's a better brand of baseball if you do it that way for the younger kids because, again, those are all things that need to be layered on from a skill development and mastery of the game standpoint. Those are things that need to be layered on as they go. Again, it's a cleaner game. It's a better game to watch with the old Little League model where they have the foot on the base and then they're coming off. And I might get run through the ringer on that and dragged on that. But there's certain things with mastery of the game that need to be layered on, and that's not one thing that needs to happen too fast, too quick for kids because then they're more worried about that than they are about actually playing the game.
100%. And coach's practice plan has to revolve now around teaching them how to lead and steal and how to prevent steals and how to,
Yep.
work on all that. And when that practice plan should be focused on learning how to throw, catch, field, hit, team
Long-term
defense,
athlete
all those
development.
type of things.
I mean, again,
Yep.
long-term athlete development, the warm-up piece. Those are the initial things of the game that need to be taught and help them, and then advance to that as they get older.
Right. Our reluctance behind it and the reason we caved, and again, we're still looking at it, is because our issues are these teams go out to tournaments and they're
Yes.
playing in those tournaments where the leads and steals are happening. So it's almost as if, and this goes back to, and I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the things we're trying to do with the ABCA and youth baseball and a meeting or summit and those things. But it goes back to trying to sort of get people on the same page, from tournament organizers to Little League, travel, Cal Ripken Pony, whatever it may be. How do we start getting on the same page with birth dates and field sizes and leads and steals, and instead of just looking out for sort of our own league or organization, how to work together for the betterment of the game. And it's very difficult, but I think those are conversations that we need to have.
Well, you just said you have 400 teams. I'll be hard pressed to look all over the country to find an area like yours that has 400 teams playing at the youth level.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we've been able to. We try to stay, out of the way and provide the services that we provide. Coaches training. We obviously do player clinics and camps and things like that. I mean, we're getting ready to. Brandon Geyer, who played in the big leagues for about 6-7 years, and it has now gotten into training athletes on the mental game of baseball, which is amazing. He came out and spoke to our high school team, offering things like that, for free to our 5,000-6,000 families. I think it's important. Scheduling umpires and fields and games and just sort of providing the logistical side of this so that coaches and teams can focus on player development and having fun and things like that. So, yes, we're excited about the game of baseball in Northern Virginia. We've got some tournament complexes coming on board soon, and I'm hoping that we can help be a pilot program for other geographical areas, metro areas throughout the country on how we can do things. We're far from perfect. Don't get me wrong. We're dealing with, I dealt with 8U parent umpire issues, which, I think, Ryan, I mean, the younger they are,
I've got Tim Cordell coming on the podcast with me soon. He's an umpire, and he spoke to the youth and the travel committee at the convention this year and the meetings. And for any parent listening in, you are negatively impacting the game for future generations and how you interact, or positively impact the game, because you all are running, coaches and parents are running umpires out of the game. And eventually we're not going to have enough umpires to officiate all of these games. And so before you react, I want you to think about whether you're positively or negatively impacting the game of baseball for future years, because you are negatively impacting the game if you handle umpires the wrong way, because this younger generation of kids wants nothing to do with umpiring because of the way they've seen parents and coaches handle umpires.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example, Ryan, of what we can do when we all try to get together, whether it be a summit meeting or conversations or youth travel committees that we already have set up. Is how do we get on the same page with, yeah, umpire treatment of umpires, recruitment of umpires, because it is, it goes back to what you talked about, bridging the gap with coaches. I mean, they're in our area, at least, they're most of our umpires are 55 plus.
Yes.
We do not have enough umpires that are ages, 18 to 50, if you will. And, how do we have a conversation globally, if you will, on how we treat umpires, how we share ideas of what you can do. I've heard different things. We've tried things. We certainly have gone through the PCA workshops and all those type of things, and need to continue to do things like that. I know Brandon Geyer, who I referenced earlier, is working on a parent workshop and how to interact with your son or daughter, how to interact with umpires, how to interact with coaches and things like that. But how do we think of creative ways to get parents, assistant coaches, and head coaches, but mainly parents and assistant coaches? Head coaches is just a matter of managing them, right, and not chirping and yelling, but calling an umpire by his name versus yelling out, "Hey, Blue," or things like that from a head coach perspective. But how do we get to a point where it's just a head coach who may quietly, and privately have a conversation with an umpire when they want to question a call, and eliminate assistant coaches and parents from arguing or chirping or complaining about calls altogether? So is that a zero tolerance policy? Do we have to give lollipops to the parents when they start getting chirpy so that they have to, put the lollipop in their mouth? And, those are some ideas that I've heard about, and some of which we've tried. Do you have to have a sort of sportsmanship parent in charge of the other parents? Like we had COVID coaches, managing the COVID protocols and things like that, which were essentially parents. Do we have, that parent who's in charge of the other parent? So umpires are certainly a big issue, and the sportsmanship related around how we treat umpires is certainly an issue we all need to talk about.
You talked about streamlining. Was that the impetus for the American Travel Baseball Alliance, was trying to maybe streamline everything and get everybody moving in the right direction?
Yes. Yeah. And it's having sort of a, network or an opportunity to have an umbrella organization for us to have these conversations. I think hopefully we're going to continue to move down that road with the ABCA, but the American Travel Baseball Alliance could as well, where we're talking to event organizers and from your Perfect Games to your Triple SAs to all the large organizations who are offering tournaments. I think one of the issues, and we even hear it locally here, is, travel baseball is the devil. Travel baseball is all these independent, teams and coaches and organizations sort of doing what they want and things like that. And some of that is true.
But it saved baseball, by the way. And I've said it multiple times during COVID, travel baseball saved baseball because they were the only show in town. When everything else got shut down, they found a way to keep going.
Yeah, and pushing through. Yeah, that's certainly big. So I think, trying to get travel baseball to talk to each other and network, collaborate, educate, have some standards in what we're trying to do, share ideas, right? Like so much of what we've done locally, we've gotten from others just by, my involvement with the ABCA. Like, wow, they're doing this over here in Southern California. Wow, that's really cool what they're doing up in Boston. And being able to share and collaborate with each other helps us all.
Hey, how can we help parents develop a healthier relationship with the development of their young kids, daughters or sons, in the game of baseball?
Yeah, that's such a big piece because because our game is a game of failure and it's so mental. You've probably heard this before. A game may last 2.5 hours, but there's only live action with the ball being thrown or hit or fielded in roughly 8.5 minutes of those 120 to 150 minutes. So there's so many opportunities for young kids to think about failure or to think about the planes driving the dandelions or the planes or whatever. So how can parents help kids deal with that failure and sort of embrace the adversity? We have a term at our high school that's a little edgy that I won't, but it's embrace, instead of embrace the adversity. It's, when back here in Northern Virginia, the last couple of days, it was like our JV team played a game the other night. It was 32 with 25-mile-an-hour winds. Embrace the,
I've watched high
adversity.
school games in Northern Virginia that time of year. You better buckle up. You better have your hat, your stocking cap, and your gloves that time of year when you're trying to watch games.
So how do we teach? Absolutely, Ryan. How do we teach our parents to be supportive, B, to take them to ice cream after take them for ice cream after a game versus grilling them, from the time they leave the field till the car pulls into the driveway, letting them understanding how we can be supportive as a parent of our children and letting them initiate conversations around baseball versus
simple things. Hey, way to run hard every time when you ran.
Yes.
Way to hustle on and off the field. Way to be a good teammate. Way to congratulate your teammates. Those are all the positive process things as a parent that you can reinforce with your kid, son or daughter, and get away from the failure piece of the game, like focus on the effort, being a good teammate. Those are all the life lessons that baseball teaches. Like it's the greatest game. It's called the American pastime for a reason, because we are how society is. You're not always going to have success in society. So baseball is that way. So really try to embrace the process piece, the hustle, the good teammate, being involved in the game. Those are all the things as a parent that you can reinforce with your son or daughter as far as enjoyment for the game, and focus on those things rather than the results.
Well, and you obviously had as good of a role model as you possibly could, with your dad and
who was as hands off. Said this a lot,
right.
Was as hands off as anybody as far as my development with me and my brother. We both loved the game of baseball because we were around it and we were at the field, not because our dad was telling us we needed to do anything. It was just a byproduct of us being at the field. And I was lucky I had an older brother that I had a built-in person that I could go in the backyard with and play games with. And that was rough at times because you're getting your teeth knocked in by your older brother. But those were all the things that helped us instill. And it wasn't because our dad was forcing us to do it or our mom was forcing us to do it. It's because we were at the field more than anything. And that's another tip for parents. Like, take your young son or daughter to games. Take them to high school games. Take them to college games. If you can afford a pro game, take them to pro games. The more that you can get them to a field, allow them to be at the field and interact and watch, that's going to instill that love and passion for the game of baseball.
Absolutely, Ryan. You nailed it on the head from every aspect. I mean, focusing on the things that they're doing well, that's more life lesson based and rather than outcome related within at bats or how they pitched or things like that is so critically important, and exposing them to the game. I don't think there's a high school coach that I know that if you reached out to them and said, hey, can we come watch your practice, or can we, stay after one of your games and meet the kids, or even college coaches, same way. If you reach out there, we just have such great people in our sport who would love to present those opportunities for young kids and families to come out and be a part of the local, community. And
I got a great reminder on Sunday. I went and watched UNC Asheville and Charleston Southern. Jackson goes to Asheville, so that was kind of a byproduct. But Coach Friedholm had his son out there, his 13-year-old son out, and playing catch before the game. And that was a great reminder for me of being on a field. That was always the great thing about what my dad did, was being able to go and interact. And it wasn't a lot, but those were all the things that I remembered about growing up, was being able to get on the field, play catch. And it just was a great reminder of what that means to a young kid to be able to get on a field here and there at times. And again, the more that a high school coach or college coach can do that, get involvement, I think you're going to reap some huge benefits. Hey, I wanted to ask you about ranking systems because you talked about with your youth team, you have a Metro, Double A, Triple A. Do we need that in the youth space? That's kind of a ranking system because it does kind of allow for competitive balance. Correct? I think we need
Yeah,
to
and
kind of
that's
have that, right? Because there is some
yeah.
competitive balance with that.
Yeah, let me circle back on one thing, and I'm going to answer that question.
Yep.
So, another thing with promoting the game, I don't know, Ryan probably saw this, but UVA baseball now allows all kids to come free to every single game.
Yep.
They posted that a couple weeks ago. So things like that, Brian O'Connor and Mac and those guys over at UVA are the best around, and for them to do things like that promotes our game and helps get the youth involved. So back to the rankings, yeah, for us, the Metro AAA, AA is really just for competitive balance. So we actually, in our software, which we built ourselves, we're able to go in and look at run differentials and graphs at any point to be able to see, are these teams in the right division? And trust me, I hate the individual player rankings systems that, a lot of these showcase orgs may have. This is all, as you said, Ryan, competitive balance. So we want, and again, this doesn't always work too, even when you're playing a team that's of relatively, the same competitive level as you are, there's still going to be,
Still
your
matters
12
who's
to
pitching.
10. Right. It all matters who's pitching. And that's especially true in our league in the spring because they're playing Little League during the week and Sundays they're playing travel. So we make sure that we coordinate pitch counts between the Little Leagues and the travel. And our Little League and travel teams are great with that. But that competitive balance is a huge part of the game because it's useless for both teams to continually play uncompetitive games. So we do our best to try to make sure that teams are within the correct divisions. And if a team's above or below a certain winning percentage in a season, we sort of push them up or down the next season. And we even schedule out the first 3 or 4 weeks of a given season. And we wait to see sort of how things play out before we schedule the last 6 or 7 weeks to see if there's anybody that really needs to move up or down.
Do you have an end of season championship then? Is that how your leagues
We
work?
do. Yeah, we do. In the
I
spring
think
and the
that's the
fall.
best model. I think playing a regular season to build up to an end of season championship, I think is the best way to do it. Dan Keller and I talked about that on the podcast. We did another youth one with him, but he and I talked about that. I think that's where we run into issues on the youth and travel side is they're playing for a championship every weekend. So it's like when it all costs every weekend rather than building up for something at the end of the year where you're playing for a championship at the end of the year.
Yeah, the most confusing thing to new coaches in our league is we don't keep standings. There's no trophies for the regular season. We don't keep standings. Things are posted when coaches enter their game results in. Did it get rained out or did they play? Things like that. But we do that for a reason because the focus is allowing competitive players who want to develop that opportunity without putting the pressure on coaches to be win at all cost coaches. Now, all coaches want to win, all players want to win, all teams want to win, whether you're keeping standings or not. So that's a given, and I think we need to understand that as organizers within the game. But when a coach calls to complain about an umpire's call that costs them the game, it's much easier for me to now say, Coach, we don't keep standings. Who cares who cares who won, who lost, right? So this gives you the opportunity to, not just play your worst, hitter or fielder or player 1 or 2 innings a game because it doesn't matter. We're here to develop kids both on and off the field, and we're not going to keep standings or give trophies in the regular season in order not to promote that. Yep. Develop kids. Let's get away from this sort of win at all cost. And unfortunately, tournaments are great. Don't get me wrong. Travel tournaments are great. But as you said, Ryan, I couldn't agree more. When they're traveling 3 out of 4 weekends, playing in tournaments every weekend, not only does it hurt family time and things like that, but it becomes, everything's about winning. And you can argue that's a part of development. It certainly is, but everything's about winning, and it's not about the development aspects, both on
It
and off the
waters
field.
it down. It really
Right.
does water the winning and losing down. If every weekend is win at all costs, then you're just banging your head against the wall. It waters winning and losing down, where you need the development piece. And then, yes, let's play for a championship at the end of the year. And then you get the taste of winning and losing at the end of the year, but you build up to that point.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, I wanted to throw in just one other thing that I just remembered what Ryan, when we were talking about T-ball and things like that. One other great idea that we had, one of our state of baseball luncheons that one of the leagues brought to us, is free T-ball.
Yep.
Free T-ball. The cost of the uniform, some equipment, the league, it doesn't cost much. But when you're talking about recruiting players within to your league, getting them in the funnel, and then figuring out how to keep them in the funnel, I thought free T-ball with a local league brought that idea to us in one of our, again, state of baseball luncheons.
How are they funding that? For anybody that's thinking about how are they funding the free piece? Because obviously the uniforms and some of the equipment.
Yeah.
How are they funding the umpires? You got maybe field rentals. How are they funding that?
Yeah. So, basically, most of the leagues in our area, the essential cost there would be balls, helmets, which, as we know, most people have their own helmets now, but at T-ball, not so much. And uniforms is the big cost. Umpires, they're not paying umpires at that level anyway, so that cost is not there. Most of the leagues in our area don't have, as I said, the field rentals, but they're basically funding that through the rest of the league. So the argument would be, is that fair to the rest of the league? But the argument would be, listen, we're trying to build our league.
It's sustaining your league. It's a great point, because it's going to make your league more viable, because you're going to get more kids to then play that next year. Like, it's a great idea.
Yeah. And you run, I think the biggest thing you can do, right, is run, and not enough people, not enough academies, not enough leagues do this because it's hard. Like, can you run T-ball coach pitch sort of 5U to 7U camps and clinics, and you charge $25? This is a league, let's just say, $25 to help fund your free T-ball. Can you, in the wintertime, do some mom and me, dad and me, classes where it's just basic catch and throw skills, where I know I'm getting off on a tangent a little bit, but how are we teaching our young players how to throw? The worst way to teach young players how to throw is have them play catch with somebody else their age.
For sure.
At 5U, 6U.
Yes.
Right. Have them try to throw it through a fence, have them try to throw it through a coach, have them try to throw it through a parent. And then catching skills, same thing. How do we teach them how to move to the ball, fingers up, fingers down, So
tennis balls, rag balls with no glove. Like, there's so many things that you can do for the young kids to help them. Wiffle balls, have them play without a glove on with wiffle balls, tennis balls, rag balls. Right. There's a lot of things that you can do to help them develop, because that is always the initial tough part, is them playing catch with another kid their age, because it's pitch and fetch now. It's not pitch and catch anymore. It's pitch and fetch.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry for that tangent.
No. Because and that's why I love talking to you, because we always get on these tangents. Been doing this for a long time and have been successful with the way that you're running things, and that's why I'm excited about this podcast, because you're so successful in how you're running things, because you're getting kids to continue to play the game in the right way, and your numbers show that with the amount of teams and players you have playing in your leagues. Hey, how's the high school season going?
Going well so far. We're getting ready to head to Vero Beach and which is really cool. We're going to Dodger Town. So the history, we had a parent player meeting last night, and started talking about the history of Dodger Town, because I want our players especially to appreciate where they are. It's, as you may know, Major League Baseball took it over and they now run it. So it's called the Jackie Robinson Training Complex. So, when we go down there, I'm going to have the staff down there talk to them a little bit more. I think it goes back all the way to the late 20s, maybe, and all the amazing players that have been through there. So we're certainly excited to get down to the 80-degree weather, and we're 5 games in and have done very well so far. So,
Hey, how many of your players on your roster have come through your youth leagues? All of them?
yeah, I would say every one of them. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by the way, that's the positive byproduct of all of this too. Is you're growing from a grassroots level. That's obviously going to help the high school program at some point.
100%. I mean, if you're a public high school coach, and that's why I love being a public high school coach, because you don't have to worry about recruiting, at least in our county. In some other counties, there is some recruiting going on. But the beauty of it is, listen, being a high school coach, you can be a really good high school coach, an average high school coach, but the biggest impact, or the biggest differentiator, is how good those kids are when they come to you as a freshman, which is basically saying, what have they done from ages 5, 6U to age 14, 15U, and who has been around them, what those leagues have done, what those coaches have done to impact those kids, both on and off the field. Listen, the T-ball coach pitch, majors, AAA, AA, little league coaches, and travel coaches and Babe Ruth coaches, you are the most important coaches in this sport by far.
That's why my
Don't
high
let
school
anybody
program
tell
was
you
good.
anything
We
other.
all played in the same leagues together all the way through until we got to high school, all the way through.
Right. So Coach O'Connor, Coach Corbin, Coach Slosh, they'll tell you the same thing. I mean, it's different, obviously, in that they're not getting kids directly from a specific little league, but the foundational aspects of the game and the life lessons are built from all of you coaches that are coaching at the little league, Babe Ruth, Cal Ripken, younger travel ages, and you're so critically important. To these kids' lives, and it's just, I'm so excited to talk about youth baseball because it's so important.
I saw UVA last weekend over at Wake. I went over to their practice on Thursday, but their roster is filled with really good players from Virginia, from the state of Virginia. Yeah. Really good players, and their whole roster is good Virginia players.
And it's a perfect example. I mean, Brian and Mac, and they've had an impact on the game of baseball in our whole state.
Yes.
Right. And not because they've gone to 4 or 5 World Series and won it in 2015, but because of their servant leadership and the way they give back with the ABCA, the VBCA. I brought my high school staff there, I think 6 or 7 years, where we go for the weekend and Brian brings us down to the dugout and he's talking to us about why they're doing this drill and why they're doing that drill. And just so giving and just such amazing people. And it's just a great example of how you can impact a whole state within one program.
What are some other things we need to be doing? Because these are all the issues that we talk about with the youth and the travel committees with the ABCA. What are some of the other things that we need to continue to help with?
Yeah, I think, we touched on it briefly earlier. We're excited. You and I have talked about it briefly of this fall or maybe early winter, trying to have a state of baseball, sort of youth baseball summit that focuses more so on the 14 and under level. I mean, you could talk about all the way up to 18, but getting people from different leagues and organizations, community, Little League Pony, Babe Ruth, Legion, whatever it may be, if it's 14 and under, obviously doesn't include Legion, and talking about these issues and how to impact them from a national perspective. And then obviously that would funnel down regionally and nationally. So again, there's so many great ideas that local leagues have that others don't know about. Free T-ball, 6-player teams.
Because we have to bridge the gap to high school. Really, that's where we've got to bridge that 13, 14 age range. That's where we're losing players, is the big field 13, 14 age range. So that's where we have to try to figure out how to bridge the gap from that 2 year span to get them into high school and into a high school campus playing baseball?
Right, because our biggest, we talk about recruitment and then it's retainment. So as you just said, Ryan, we lose most of our kids when they get to the big field. Okay, there's three real big spots when they get to high school and they're worried about making their high school team. But if you sort of work your way backwards, when they get to the big field and the challenge of the big fields, right? It's not just the biggest kid doing the best because they're the biggest and strongest. There's so many challenges, and that I love coaching 13U, right? There's so much to teach them. They're so impressionable, and it's awesome. But then also,
Hey, Coach
right?
McMullen threw this out there. Could we go intermediate where you have in between bases between before they go to 60 to 90 or on the mound? Is that something to throw out there at some point? Can we do intermediate bases and pitching mound in between to kind of help them bump to then the 60-foot pitching mound and 90-foot bases? And again, I'm just kind of new into all of this. And I don't even know if that's ever been brought up because I thought Mac had a good point. Is there a way to kind of bridge the bases and the pitching mound distance to where before they get to 60 feet 90?
Yeah, I mean that's why Mac's so good at what he does. Absolutely. I mean it's such a huge issue. They're 70 foot at 11U, 12U travel, and they're 65 foot now and things like that. But there's so many 13-year-olds, especially, that have no business being on a 90-foot field yet. And when you bring this up locally or nationally, everybody says, well, we don't have the right size fields to do that, or we don't have the infrastructure to be able to change all these fields or things like that. And what I think they need to focus on, don't worry about the fence distances.
Yes.
Just worry about
the infield distances.
Right. And because these 13-year-olds.
By the way, we all played on fields that didn't have fences back in the day. Like when you were growing up there, you would play on a field with no fence. So it didn't really matter. Like, okay, the outfielders would have to run and get it. So like that outfield distance really doesn't matter. I know it's more fun because people hit home runs, right, but the outfield distance doesn't matter. It's about what's going on the infield.
It was fun. We played this past weekend, my high school team. My son, Kyle, is a senior now. So it's coaching. This is my last coaching experience with one of my kids. So it's good and bad, right? It makes me tear up at times. But we went back to play at this school in Arlington, Washington, and Liberty High School, and it's been there for 75 plus years, 80 years. And I played there 35 years ago. I'm like, Kyle, when I played here, there was no fence. He's like, Dad, no way. There's high school baseball fields all had fences. I'm like, Kyle, there was no fence. It was hit a line drive and go. Now, for me, I probably got to second base if I hit it past the infield.
Hey, there were some college fields back in the day that didn't have outfield. Drexel University didn't have an outfield fence. They played in a city park, and if you hit it into the bushes, it was an automatic triple.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to it, it's just having these out-of-the-box concepts and ideas like field size, base sizes are so critically important to retain players. Ryan, as you know, you're working on ball modification discussions. I've always said, why in the world, when kids get younger, okay, we force them to cover the entire plate, a 17-inch plate, just like a major leaguer. We force them to do these things that they can't do. Why don't we have bam bats at T-ball, coach pitch, machine pitch? When they start seeing the ball move, mainly coach pitch, machine pitch. Like, let's get the fatter bats. Right now it's 13 and up have the bigger barrels, and these poor 6, 7, 8-year-olds that are starting coach pitch and machine pitch are hitting with these skinny barrel bats and not having any success, and therefore leaving the game. So how can we modify bats to not have the this huge exit velocity impact, but why not allow 6 to 8-year-olds to use big barrel bats so that there's more balls in play, and there's more success? And you and I and I think Carrick have talked about this as well. Are we forcing kids to pitch at too young of an age? And then there's too many balls and the games becomes boring. Too many walks, too many things like
Well,
that.
Dan and
So
I talked about that. The old Little League model took care of all of that because you're playing 9 to 12-year-olds, and usually your 11 and 12-year-olds were the ones that pitched. It wasn't your 9 and 10-year-olds, unless you had really advanced 9 or 10-year-old. But usually the older kids, and again, for me, 11, 12 is probably the right time for a kid to get off the mound for the first time because they have enough strength to do it. And that was back in the old days. And you weren't playing as many games back then in Little League. I mean, you're playing maybe 2 days a week. You're practicing 4 or 5 days a week, but playing 2 days a week. So there wasn't that, okay, even if you used 4, 11, and 12-year-olds, it really wasn't that big a deal because you're only playing 2 games that week.
yeah, and I think we get caught up in this, and it goes back to the leads and steals you talked about earlier, Ryan. We get caught up in this. We need to prepare them to pitch. We need to prepare them to have leads and steals. Well, what are we just going to keep moving that down? Okay,
Yeah.
now it's 10U, so we got to prepare them at 9U, or it's 8U, or we need to prepare them to be pitchers at whatever age. No, we need to teach them the foundational player development principles of throwing, catching, base run.
Hey,
Those
you give me
different things
you give
that
me a kid from 6 to 10 and let me just work on him throwing and working on playing catch. I guarantee they're probably going to be able to throw strikes when they get off the mound at 11.
Yep,
I guarantee it. I will guarantee it. By
absolutely.
having 4 years of just playing catch and hitting their target, I guarantee we'll be able to translate that when they get big and strong enough to, at 11, now being able to throw the ball over the plate. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues, and Ryan, you make me think of this with youth baseball, and you and I have talked about this, and Dave as well, or Craig as well, is at some points we get caught up in this is how we've always done
Yep.
things. All right, Travel, Legion, Cal Ripken, Little League, whatever it may be. I'm not pinning it on any organization, but we can't do that. We've done it this way for 20 years, for 50 years, for 70 years. And well, okay, well, things have changed, right? We need to be open to new ideas, and we need to be open to help grow and promote the game nationally, not just within our specific organization or league. And you know,
And you're
we
doing
all
some good
appreciate.
pilot stuff. Like that's the unique thing is you do some pilot stuff. There's nothing to say that if you have a league that one of those games that week you can try something different from a modification standpoint. So okay, so say you have a kid pitch, say even 8U you have kid pitch. Make one of those games a week a coach pitch game, or make one of those games a week a modified T game. Like you could structure different things. Like it's your league. You can do however you want with it. Okay, let's do a modified schedule where, okay, yeah, if you want to introduce them to coach pitch, don't make every, or kid pitch, don't make every game that week kid pitch. Mix in some coach pitch so now we get some action so you get both of it. It's that microdosing piece. Give them a little bit of taste of the kid pitch part, but then let's have some games where we're whacking the ball around because the coach is throwing it over the plate for them.
Absolutely. I mean, we have, as you know, even in college and high school, do we inter squad today? Yeah, we want to inter squad, but our pitchers aren't throwing enough strikes, and it takes too long. And we're not getting enough defensive action or base running action. I mean, it happens at the high school, college level
For sure,
so
it's
we
a
have to
coach.
modify.
It's going to be a coach pitch day, or it's going to be a
Right.
pitching
Yeah,
machine day. You do it all the time at
absolutely.
the upper levels, and you talk about getting
So
them prepared. Well, that's what they're going to see at those levels. So you can do that at the youth level. You can mix all that stuff in because that's what they're doing at the upper levels. They're doing it at the big league level too. They're using machines.
yeah,
Like if you want to talk about getting them prepared for the next level, well, those are all things that at the next level they are doing. So you can do that with your youth kids too.
absolutely. And just to build upon what you just said, you were so right. Is hey, in the fall, are we just gonna how do we maybe eliminate games or only have 8 games versus 16 games, and how do we run efficient and organized and fun practices? And that's where the ABCA comes in. I mean, to have access to 400 or 500 videos from the best youth, college, high school, pro coaches and instructors in the game, it's pretty easy to build a practice plan around that and run a practice where kids love to come to, but where they're also getting better. And, just having little things like, guys, 9 minutes early is late, from a coach, how to wear your hat right, how to, polish your shoes. We did stuff like that in single A, double A when my kids were 8 and 9U. And I have guys that are coaching with me now or for me in high school. Like, coach, I remember, we had to polish our shoes before every coach bitch game. And, because what happens if you tell them they have to be there 10 minutes early, then instead of them playing video games and mom and dad's dragging them reluctantly to practice, 30 minutes before the practice, they're tugging at mom and dad's shirt saying, hey, we got to be there 10 minutes early. So I think these amazing and wonderful opportunities that the ABCA provides, not only through the convention and all the other things that you have done through the podcast and barnstorming clinics and everything else, these resources make it real simple for coaches who don't have baseball backgrounds to run a fun and efficient and organized practice. So
the app's another piece. The app has all of it. It has the video library, but then it has the hard copy resource. There's practice plans in there. There's all kinds of stuff. There's dugout management stuff in there. There is all kinds of stuff in the app for people to dive into that are ready to go. You can print all those hard copies off the app if you want. It's all there ready for you to go.
I think I speak for almost all coaches, and you remember this, I'm sure. Some of my favorite part of the day is writing practice plan. Yep. When we get off this podcast, I'll probably be getting into my practice plan for today's practice. And I know a Little League coach or a Babe Ruth coach isn't a baseball nut like myself. But taking 15 minutes to run a really cool, fun and organized practice, it will pay off, and you'll have a lot more fun coaching too.
That's the big piece of it is you're going to enjoy it a lot more. The kids are going to enjoy it a lot more, and the coaches will enjoy it a lot more. And it doesn't have to be, it's not earth shattering. Have a template that you set up. You can mix different things in, but teach them how to warm up properly. I was so fortunate with my Little League coaches. They were organized. They taught us how to warm up properly. They taught us to do arm exercises at a young age. So that routine carried me my entire career as a player because you just got used to warming up properly, arm exercises, then get into all the other practice piece. And there was a reason I stayed healthy too. Like besides playing other sports, I stayed healthy, but there was a reason my arm stayed healthy my entire career because of all the stuff that I was doing at a young age.
Absolutely.
Hey, what did you learn from Rick Jones?
Rick was, I still use this saying with my high school pitchers, and they get frustrated with me just like I used to get frustrated with Coach Jones. No 3-ball counts. So I pitched for him at Elon, and you'd get to a 3-ball count, far enough, or 2-ball count, far enough, no 3-ball counts. Like, coach, I'm not trying to throw balls, but what it really helped me with, and it sort of changed me as a pitcher. He certainly knew a lot about pitching and the impact he had on me and all of us that played for him at Elon was tremendous. But, the thought process is if you never you're never going to walk anybody if you don't get to 3-ball counts, and just trying to train our pitchers to get after guys and don't give hitters too much credit. Right. And that's the one thing that always stands out to me with Coach Jones from a pitching perspective. But
that was my dad organized. Too. Like it's same thing. Pitch aggressively. He said it a million times. They're not the 27 Yankees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Coach Jones was so organized and to me ahead of his time and in many, many aspects. And obviously has been a long time member of the ABCA and, impacted many of us who are now still in the game because of him. He's awesome.
Hey, what are some other resources that you're using that maybe some other coaches that are coming up, especially youth coaches, need to dive into?
Yeah, I think it's from a resource perspective, obviously the ABCA to me is number one. USA Baseball has some good free resources on their site. If you just go to their site, Coaches Insider, and so many different. I know Little League University has opportunities. Babe Ruth has a partnership as well to help train their coaches and players. But I think locally, if I'm a Little League board member or Cal Ripken or travel league coach or run a travel league organization program, I'm reaching out to my local high school or college coaches because they're all willing to help and they want to help. And I'm reaching out to them to it's just like when we all walk around the ABCA convention and we run into Tim Corbin and you get what's your elevator pitch or 30-second, what's your one question to Tim Corbin, what's your 3 favorite drills, or what's your favorite hitting drill, or what do you think about this, right? You got to sort of. So I think our Little League coaches, travel coaches, youth league coaches, same thing, like reach out to your high school coaches, pick their brain, ask them to do a clinic with your league, or if you're a coach of a specific team. We're excited to sort of get involved now that, COVID is a little less crazy, to get back involved with our Little League and get out there once or twice on Saturdays where all our players are in their jerseys and they're sort of baseball buddies for the day and the local Little League. And I think that's another thing for Little League organizations, again, another tangent, to think about the number one advantage that community rec house leagues, Little Leagues, Cal Ripken leagues, Babe Ruth leagues have, whatever you want to call them, is the ability to sell the community. So when you have these multi-field Little League complexes where kids can go, they have a game, let's say Saturday at 2, but they show up at 10 a.m. and they stay at the complex all day. No other sport has that. Yep. Basketball, you're in and out. Soccer, you're in and out. Football, maybe to a degree. And we need to sell that. We need to use that. So what do Little Leagues need to do? They need to schedule all their games on Saturdays at that complex. Don't one-off it at 6 different sites. Stack that facility all day, have the concession stand open, and now we're creating those memories that you and I have from playing Little League baseball. I mean, I remember going up there 9 a.m. playing cup ball all day, or wiffle ball, and watching my buddies play.
Hot box.
And we had the 7, right. Yeah, absolutely. We'd have the 7 p.m. game and boom, eating Little League pizza from the snack bar. I mean, that is what we have to sell at the community league level. We need to take advantage of that and sell that when we have these multi-field complexes. That is a differentiator. Even when you're talking Little Leagues or Cal Ripken leagues trying to keep kids from going to travel only at that age. I think that is crazy. Travel only 12 and under. Okay. But, use that, sell that.
Hey, what stuck out to you? These were your first convention where you're on the board and the executive committee meetings. What stuck out to you this year about the convention?
Yeah, it truly, my first convention was I got engaged right after, so I should know this, 96 in Tennessee, in Nashville. I believe it was 96 was my first convention. Being sort of behind the curtain truly was amazing and shocked me how much work is done behind the scenes to make that such a seamless event. I mean, we've all heard it, right? It's the Disney World of baseball. It's the place you have to be if you're a baseball person. And it was so exciting for me. Also, we had some new coaches, or not new coaches, but coaches who are longtime coaches. Was their first exposure to the ABCA convention, Pudge at Madison and some others. And they were just simply blown away. But to be able to get behind the scenes and see the incredible passion that our executive committee and our board has for the game of baseball and how to grow and promote it. I mean, when you hear, just these college coaches who are so well known, Dan from Louisville and all these guys just who care about the game all the way down to 5U, 6U. And it's just truly amazing and gives me goosebumps thinking about it. And the board and the leadership and the staff that the ABCA has is second to none. And I'm just so excited to be a part of it.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something that you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now is one of the best things that happened to you?
Yeah, I think it wasn't really a failure moment, but to me, the first thing I thought of when you just asked that question is my son Kyle, who's now a senior. As you know, Ryan was diagnosed with leukemia at age 6, and obviously tremendous impact negatively on all of us, and just one of those moments in our lives as a family that was devastating. 3.5 years of treatment, chemo, radiation, almost a year homebound, no school, no sports. And this just gives you a perfect example of the impact of our game. I mean, the only thing that Kyle wanted to do, again, he's age 6. It happened in the middle of his fall ball season. I was his coach. He's in first grade, is get back to baseball. Get back to baseball. So we were able, baseball was really the only sport he could play. Basketball, germs, football, contact. And for him to get back to the game of baseball was life-changing for him, to have something to look forward to each and every day. But for me, that was certainly it, right? All of a sudden we're dealing with a child who has a very serious illness, and dealing with that, not only for Kyle, but Maddie, our daughter, and Robert were both older, and very devastating for them as well. And how do we balance the attention that now has to go to Kyle for his treatment and everything else. So it was life-changing for me because it gave me perspective. So all of a sudden we talked about—
How do you keep it together as a parent? I mean, how did you keep it together?
To be honest, we didn't keep it together, right? But it was the whole, the duck, what's going on beneath the water was very different than what was above. So we, Kieran and I, my wife and I, had to keep it together for our 3 kids, right? So anytime we were with them, which was, pretty much anytime you're not at work, we had to show strength and compassion and everything else. But that experience built us as a family, certainly built me, made me appreciate everything in life even more. Kyle is now a healthy 17-year-old who's 6'5" and playing baseball in high school. And I just can't stop smiling because of where he is right now and where our other kids are and our family. But it was life-changing. We created Kyle's Camp with the Washington Nationals and have been fortunate enough to raise about $2.5 million for pediatric cancer research with Children's National. And that really, again, I talked about the foundational principles when you asked me about servant leadership. Man, this is this great opportunity to use the sport of baseball to impact others. And to be able to raise all that money through the years in partnership with the Nationals through our sport of baseball is just so fulfilling on so many levels. So that was certainly a huge impact on my life. And I came out of it, and I think our whole family did. And Kyle's got the best attitude of any kid I've ever met, getting ready to pick a college, things like that. But it just to come out of that and working with other families who were experiencing the same thing. And unfortunately some kids that passed, during that time or later, or can, obviously continue to deal with pediatric cancer, was just so impactful. And to see the doctors and the nurses and everybody that works with kids and families who are dealing with that, just such an inspiration on so many levels.
For anybody that wants to dive into Kyle's Camp, where can they find Kyle's Camp?
The website, you could go to either one. We're actually just changing it over, so I think it's down for like a week, but it'll be up probably this weekend. kylescamp.org, both with K, so it's KYLESKAMP.org. It'll be back up this weekend. But yeah, just and again, that's just good people like the learners and the Washington Nationals getting involved, and just the amazing people at Children's National, and the beauty of pediatric cancer research is they obviously share it. Children's and CHOP and St. Jude's are, all sharing these therapies, and we've come so far with children's cancer. And unfortunately, the federal government, sorry, on my pediatric cancer, you got me on my soapbox, only dedicates about 4% of cancer research to pediatric cancer because there's not as many cases, so there's not as much money in it, right? Pharmaceutical companies aren't developing enough pediatric cancer drugs for that same reason. So we saw this incredible void and opportunity to do something special through our sport with that. But just again, all the amazing people that were a part of it, all the volunteers and continue to be a part of it, have inspired me and our family in a huge way.
Any evening or morning routines you like? You're busy. You're way busier than me. So anything that helps you stay on track?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly need to be more healthy, but for me, it's trying to make sure, and it's very difficult during the baseball season, but trying to make sure that we have family dinners as often as possible, trying to make sure that we continue to do things as a family is huge for me, whether it be mini vacations or we're already planning our 3 or 4 St. Louis Cardinals trips. We're huge Cardinals fans. My family's originally from St. Louis, so Pujols coming back.
How pumped are you about that?
Oh, yeah. My daughter texts me right away. She watches every single game on the MLB network, every single Cardinals game. And so while we're down in Vero next week, we're going to go down to West Palm, watch them play the Astros, but we're going to plan a trip there. So, in terms of morning and evening routines, I've got these different, as you said, I'm involved in so many different levels of baseball, but it's getting to the office early. Unfortunately, I've been the only one in the office for 2 years with COVID, and just catching up all the NVTBL stuff with the league, and trying to manage all of that. It like my routines, I need to learn something from you, change depending on the season, right? Because I need to be better with that and try to get to that. But certainly prayers for me are a big thing. My morning prayer and my evening prayer. Again, going back to when Kyle is sick, I say the same exact prayer every evening. I did it with Kyle for about 5 years. We'd say it out loud, or I'd say it out loud with both of us there. And then he got a little bit older and didn't continue to do that once he became a teenager. But I say the exact same prayer where I mention about 40 to 50 different cancer patients, survivors, and kids that have passed, and their families, and have it memorized. And it's a big part of my life, saying that every night. I think another piece for me is appreciating the country that we live in. Our kids say the Pledge of Allegiance before every single game at Westfield or every practice, at Westfield High School. We stop games when the national anthem are coming on the soccer field, lacrosse field, softball field, and our kids stand at attention right after that pitch for the whole time. So appreciating all the people that have protected our freedoms here are a big piece, and appreciating our country and our nurses, doctors, police officers, firemen, and we have different games. I'm sorry, a tangent again, where military appreciation, police, people who are servant leaders to us in our communities. We bring out the teachers one day and have a teacher appreciation. They throw out the first pitches and all that type of stuff. So
we need more of that now. We've lost it. Yeah. We need to get it back. We need to find whatever we can as a society and as Americans. We need to find a way to get that back.
How do we bring people together? I'm just so tired of the social media just breaking us apart, and the news outlets breaking us apart and choose one side or the other. How can we use our game to bring people together, right? And it doesn't matter what political affiliation you're from. Let's come together and let's use our sport to provide that mechanism. There's certainly ways to do that.
And that's been the history of baseball throughout the history of America. Baseball has been there, and obviously Field of Dreams hit it right. That's true. We have been there. The game of baseball has been there to shepherd America through any sort of strife or any complications. You can go back in the history of America. Baseball has been the one common to bring everybody together to, again, extend across the aisle, reach across the aisle, find common bonds with someone. You hit that earlier, that you're bringing that community together, all those organizations, because you're getting everybody in the same room. And if you can get people in the same room, you find those human bonds that you have with another person, and you can't do that on a computer screen. You can't do that on a phone.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Um, let's continue to allow baseball to unite us. 9/11 was another great example of that, and how it brought us back.
What are some final thoughts or anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
Yeah, I think just reiterating that, be on the lookout for something we're trying to do with the Youth Baseball Summit, state of baseball, to focus on that 14 and under age level. Anybody that wants to get involved, will be announcing that in the next month or two. Looking at most likely the November timeframe for that. But just people who want to share ideas and talk about how to impact the game of baseball in a positive way, how to recruit and retain players, how to build our game, so that it's here for many years to come, and just sharing those ideas and collaborating. I think extremely excited about that. And again, the ABCA is such a, I tell people, like, you got to go to the ABCA convention. You're going to learn a lot about baseball, but you're going to walk away and say, wow, I just learned a lot about life too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that too. It truly is amazing. You're like, wow, whether it be morning and evening routines, which I haven't listened to very well, or whatever it may be, relationships and anything and everything. The ABCA has been so impactful on me as a coach and in my life. And I'm looking forward to sort of building upon the youth and travel committees and looking at this State of Baseball Summit. I think will be a big step forward, and obviously continuing that in Nashville next January.
And you get to come to Omaha now.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Oh, trust me. It's on my calendar right here, June 15th, 16th. I'm going to go a couple of days early and stay a couple of days late.
Love it.
I'm so excited.
Rob, I appreciate it, man. I always enjoy our conversations and our friendships. So thank you so much.
Ryan, you're the best. And thank you so much for everything you do for our game.